This is the 9th part of my project to recreate Kings Island in Parkitect. In this video, I focus my attention on the first roller coaster of the project, Mystic Timbers. I'm starting off by building the area where the lockers would be in real life, and after that, I began work on the queue. In real life, Mystic Timbers' queue is very windy, and it's pretty hard to recreate that in Parkitect, when all the paths are right angles. But I think I got pretty close. It's not perfect, but I think it's still pretty good. In real life, Mystic Timbers' queue constantly wraps around itself, but this is as close as I could get to the real life counterpart. It has the same basic shape, so I'm happy with that. Right here is the part of the queue where it wraps underneath the station, and then it curves back out and goes towards the station. Now that the queue is done, I'm finally able to begin working on the ride itself. Once again, if you see my screen go black, that's just me switching monitors to look at Google Earth. I'm using Google Earth to get measurements for the ride and for the paths around it. Now the biggest problem I had while recreating this ride was the angle of the lift hill. In Parkitect, when you're building a wooden coaster, the lift hill can either be a 32-degree angle or a 45-degree angle. I believe in real life Mystic Timbers is about 35 degrees, so the 32-degree angle is a little too short and the 45-degree angle is way too big. Using the 32-degree lift hill, I got a height of around 80 feet, but in real life Mystic Timbers is 109 feet. This was the closest I could get though, while maintaining the basic shape of Mystic Timbers drop. So the stats aren't perfect, but they're pretty close. I tried making Mystic Timbers taller, but it looked weird and unnatural, so I stuck with the 80-foot height. So this recreation isn't perfect, but I'm still pretty happy with the shape of the ride and the layout itself. I think it still resembles its real-life counterpart pretty well. Another problem I had was the turns. Mystic Timbers has lots of sharp turns throughout the ride, but in Parkitect there's two types of turns, a 45-degree turn and a 90-degree turn. The 45-degree turn has to be flat as well, which makes things a lot more difficult. I tried my best to replicate the curves and the turns throughout Mystic Timbers, but almost none of them are perfect. They still resemble the basic shape though, which I'm happy about. Right here you can see me struggling to get Mystic Timbers over the elevated pathways of Whitewater Canyon. In real life, Mystic Timbers flies right over this ride, but it still stays low to the ground. Trying to recreate that wasn't easy, but I think it turned out decent. These trees around Whitewater Canyon got in the way of Mystic Timbers, so unfortunately they have to go. Right here, I'm trying to recreate the mid-course turnaround. In real life, there's a tunnel, but in my recreation, there isn't one yet. I might add that later, though. This is essentially the halfway point of the ride. The rest of the ride is just the return trip back. It essentially just runs parallel to itself, and then splits off and goes to the brake run. Now you might see me struggling to recreate some of the airtime hills. The Parkitect coaster builder isn't exactly made for recreations. The angles and elements you're able to create are very limited, and there's lots of obstacles. Personally, I think that adds to some of the fun, but it makes recreations like this very difficult. Now, although the shaping on some elements isn't perfect, all elements on the ride are included in the recreation. It's not a one-on-one recreation, and some elements are off, but it's all still there, which I'm pretty happy about. Now, due to the way the coaster builder in Parkitect works, I couldn't get the angles at the end perfect. The brake run doesn't perfectly line up with the station, so there's an extra turn at the end. I know that's not there in real life, but it has to be there in game so it lines up correctly. I know it doesn't look perfect, but it's awfully necessary in order to recreate the shed. Given that, I think it can be pretty easily overlooked. Right here, I'm just trying to get the track at the end of the brake run back to the original height of the station. Now that the layout of the coaster's done, I can begin work on decorations, the entrance, and the station. The first order of business though is the entrance. Mystic Timbers has a very unique ride entrance, and I wanted to recreate that to the best of my ability. There's an old worn out truck next to the entrance of the ride that plays ambient music, and there's a big sign with the ride logo right next to the entrance. Now I begin work on Mystic Timbers Station and the Shed of Mystic Timbers, which is essentially just a building that covers the brake run. Now these are really complex buildings, and I'm not the best at building in Parkitect, so I left the interiors empty and try to decorate the exterior to the best of my ability. These are just fences separating the queue from the log ride right next to it. Now that the ride itself, the entrance, the station, and the shed are done, it's time to create the exit path, and the photo booth. First, before I could make the exit, I had to raise this hill a little bit. I had to raise it just enough so the exit could fit underneath it. And finally, here's the finished product. Well, that's all for this part. I hope you enjoyed. In the next part, I plan to recreate the Kings Island train that wraps around Mystic Timbers. Like always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.